For decades, Prince Edward was a name rarely spoken in royal scandals. He was the youngest Windsor, the quiet observer, the prince who never chased headlines. While his siblings fought battles in the public eye, he remained in the background, a man of silence in a family that thrived on spectacle. But now, that silence has been shattered. Prince Edward, the royal family's most overlooked member, has finally broken his silence on Princess Diana. And what he has revealed has left even the most loyal royal watchers stunned. Why now? Why would a man who spent his life avoiding controversy suddenly step forward and speak about a woman who changed the monarchy forever? Could it be guilt, a long-buried secret? Or is there a deeper reason, one the royal family never wanted the world to know? Edward's voice is soft, but his words carry weight. His revelations challenge everything we thought we knew about Diana's life, her struggles, and the way the monarchy handled her meteoric rise. For years, the world has viewed Diana through one lens: a woman wronged, a tragic princess swallowed by an institution that could never understand her. But Edward's words suggest something far more complex. His account isn't just about Diana, it is about power, loyalty, and a monarchy that may have been far more involved in her downfall than they have ever admitted. The question remains: why did Edward stay silent for so long? Was he protecting the crown, his family, or even himself? And now that he has spoken, what does this mean for the royal family? Will his words bring long overdue justice? Or will they only deepen the cracks in an institution already struggling to maintain its place in a modern world? One thing is clear, this is not just another royal revelation, this is a moment of reckoning. Prince Edward's words have changed the game, and the consequences will be felt far beyond the palace walls. But why did Edward, the prince who always stayed in the shadows, suddenly choose to speak now? Prince Edward and Princess Diana were never the most talked about pairing in royal circles. Their bond was neither filled with public warmth nor tainted by scandal. In many ways, they seemed like two people moving through the same world but on vastly different paths. Diana was the fire that lit up the royal stage, capturing hearts across the globe, while Edward was the quiet shadow, never stepping too far into the spotlight. Yet, despite their contrasting roles, their lives intertwined in ways few truly understood. When Diana first entered the royal family in the early 1980s, Edward was just a young man watching history unfold. She was a teenage bride marrying his older brother Prince Charles in what was meant to be a fairy tale. The world saw a beautiful princess stepping into her royal duties, but Edward saw something different. He witnessed a young woman being thrust into an institution that was not prepared for her charisma, her emotional depth, or her modern approach to royalty. At first, Edward remained at a distance. He was not directly involved in Diana's world, and unlike his siblings, he did not engage in the high-profile dramas that unfolded within palace walls. But as time went on, he could not ignore the shift. Diana was no longer just a new member of the royal family. She was becoming its biggest force. Her ability to connect with people was unlike anything the monarchy had seen before. Crowds adored her, the press followed her every move, and the royal family struggled to understand how to contain her influence. Edward observed it all. He saw how Diana's charm created a rift between her and the institution that was meant to protect her. He saw how her growing fame made others within the family uncomfortable. He witnessed the tension between her and Charles escalate behind closed doors, and he understood the cracks in their marriage were more than just rumors. But what did Edward truly think of Diana? To some, she was a disruptor, someone who refused to follow the rigid rules of royal life. To others, she was a hero, a woman who humanized the monarchy and brought it closer to the people. Edward, ever the quiet observer, never took a public stance. He did not defend her, but he also did not condemn her. His silence spoke volumes. For years, he watched as Diana's struggles became more public. He saw the toll it took on her, and he saw how the royal family responded. But instead of stepping in, he remained a witness, a man caught between family loyalty and the undeniable reality of Diana's pain. Edward may have stayed silent, but he had a front-row seat to Diana's most turbulent years. For centuries, the British royal family operated under a single, unshakable rule: control the narrative. Their carefully constructed image was built on dignity, discretion, and an unwavering distance from public scrutiny. The phrase, "never complain, never explain," was more than just a motto. It was a survival tactic. The monarchy thrived on mystique, revealing only what they wanted the world to see. But then came Diana. From the moment she stepped into the public eye, Diana rewrote the rules. She was young, vibrant, and deeply relatable in a way no royal had ever been before. While the rest of the family kept their emotions locked behind palace walls, Diana wore hers openly. She cried in public, she spoke about her struggles, she acknowledged her pain, and in doing so she shattered the illusion that the monarchy was untouchable. Prince Edward, though not an active participant in these conflicts, watched as Diana's rise caused shockwaves within the institution. The royal family had never dealt with someone like her before. She was supposed to be a supporting figure in Charles's life, but instead, she became the main event. Crowds chanted her name, the press obsessed over her every move, and even world leaders seemed more interested in meeting Diana than the monarchy itself. With each appearance, her popularity grew, and so did the tensions behind closed doors. The royal family was no longer the most powerful force in their own story, Diana was. And that was a problem. The monarchy's image depended on unity and tradition. They did not welcome change, and they certainly did not welcome personal revelations. But Diana did not follow those rules. She spoke openly about the pressures of royal life. She admitted to feeling isolated, unloved, and unsupported. She broke every unspoken rule, and the public loved her for it. Edward, ever the silent observer, understood the impact this was having. He saw the monarchy struggle to keep up with a world that was evolving. He witnessed how Diana's presence exposed the family's inability to adapt. For decades, they had controlled every aspect of their image, but Diana was uncontrollable. Her openness was both her greatest strength and the monarchy's greatest fear. She connected with the people in a way they never could, and that made her a threat, not just to Charles, but to the entire institution. The more they tried to manage her, the more obvious it became that the monarchy's grip on its legacy was slipping. Edward never spoke about these struggles at the time, but he saw the battle unfold, and years later, as he finally found his voice, it was clear Diana had forever changed the way the world saw the royal family. Edward witnessed firsthand how the royal image was both protected and shattered by Diana's presence. Princess Diana did something no other royal had ever done. She made the monarchy feel human. For centuries, the royal family operated like a distant institution, bound by protocol and tradition. They were meant to be symbols, not individuals. But Diana changed that. She was warm, emotional, and openly compassionate. She did not just wave from a palace balcony. She stepped into crowds, held hands with strangers, and looked people in the eye. She brought the monarchy down from its pedestal and into the real world. And for the public, that was revolutionary. But for the royal family, it was a crisis. Diana's ability to connect with ordinary people was unlike anything they had ever seen. She visited hospitals and embraced AIDS patients at a time when misinformation about the disease caused widespread fear. She walked through minefields to bring attention to forgotten victims of war. She comforted the sick, the homeless, and the abandoned, not because it was a royal duty, but because she cared. The world saw her as a force for good, someone who made the monarchy more relatable and more modern. But inside the palace, her growing influence was seen as a challenge. The monarchy had survived for centuries by being untouchable. Diana's approach was the opposite. She was open, emotional, and deeply personal, and that made her unpredictable. Prince Edward, unlike his older brother Charles, saw the power of Diana's approach. He understood that she was not just a royal figure, she was a global icon. But Edward was not one to interfere. While others within the family tried to contain Diana's influence, he remained neutral. He watched as she balanced the demands of royal life with her need for independence, and he saw how that balance became impossible to maintain. Diana's independence was both her greatest strength and her greatest struggle. She refused to be molded into the role of a quiet, obedient princess. She spoke about her emotions, her fears, and her pain. She let the world see behind the palace walls, and the monarchy was not prepared for that level of honesty. The question remains, did Diana help or hurt the monarchy in the long run? Some argue that she saved it. Before Diana, the royal family was losing relevance. They were seen as out of touch, an institution of the past. Diana made them matter again. She brought attention, energy, and a modern touch that kept them in the spotlight. She made people care. But others argue that she exposed the monarchy's greatest weakness, their inability to evolve. By showing the world that she struggled behind the palace gates, she revealed that the institution was rigid, unfeeling, and unwilling to change, and that revelation left lasting damage. Even today, the monarchy is still trying to repair the cracks that appeared during Diana's lifetime. Edward never took a side. He was not the future king like Charles, nor was he a rebel like Diana, but he was there, he saw it all. And while he never spoke about it publicly, his silence did not mean ignorance. Edward remained on the sidelines, but he saw the cracks forming long before they became public. The world stood still on August 31, 1997 X on News. News of Princess Diana's tragic death in a car crash in Paris spread like wildfire, sending shockwaves across the globe. People flooded the streets in mourning, candlelight vigils burned through the night, and outside Kensington Palace an ocean of flowers grew by the hour. Diana was more than a royal. She was a symbol of hope, kindness, and change, and now she was gone. The grief was overwhelming. People sobbed openly in the streets, unable to process the loss of a woman they had never met but felt they knew. She was the people's princess, and the people were heartbroken. But while the world mourned, the royal family remained silent. Their response, or lack of one, was a disaster of historic proportions. The monarchy's rigid adherence to tradition kept them from reacting in a way that felt human. No public statements, no lowering of the flag at Buckingham Palace, and no visible emotion from the royals. The family retreated behind palace walls, following the same old rulebook they had used for centuries. But this time, it did not work. The public turned against them. Questions filled the air. Where was the Queen? Why was Charles not speaking? Why did it seem like the royal family did not care? The backlash was fierce. Newspapers condemned their silence, celebrities called them out, and even the most devoted royal supporters started to question whether the monarchy had lost touch with the very people it was supposed to represent. Prince Edward, always the quiet one, was caught in the middle. He was devastated by Diana's passing, but unlike his brothers, his grief was silent. He had no public role in the mourning process. He was not a widower like Charles, nor was he a grieving son like William and Harry. He was simply a brother-in-law, one who had witnessed Diana's struggles, one who had understood her challenges in a way few others did, but he could say nothing. Even as the Queen finally addressed the nation, the damage was done. The monarchy had shown a level of detachment that people would never forget. Diana's death became a turning point for the royal family. It forced them to evolve, to show emotion, to acknowledge that they could not afford to remain distant figures of tradition. Edward remained in the background as the institution scrambled to repair its image. He watched as his family shifted, softened, and tried to rebrand themselves in a way that would keep them relevant in the modern world. But he never spoke about his grief. He never shared what he thought of Diana's death, of the family's response, or of the backlash that followed. Yet, years later, as he finally found his voice, it became clear. His silence after Diana's passing carried a deeper meaning, one that is only now being revealed. For decades, Prince Edward remained silent while the world debated Diana's legacy. He watched as the royal family struggled to balance public admiration for her with their complicated history. He saw how every documentary, every book, and every interview about her reignited discussions about the monarchy's failures. But through it all, he said nothing. Until now. Edward's recent statements about Diana have stunned royal watchers. Unlike previous royal admissions, his words are neither defensive nor dismissive. He does not try to rewrite history or protect the institution at all costs. Instead, he offers something that has long been missing from the conversation: an unfiltered look at the complexities of Diana's time in the royal family. For the first time, Edward acknowledged what many had suspected for years, that Diana was never fully accepted by the monarchy. He confirmed that the institution struggled to handle her influence, that her emotional openness was seen as a weakness rather than a strength, and that behind closed doors she faced more resistance than anyone was willing to admit. His words revealed that Diana's isolation was not just a consequence of her fame, it was by design. But why now? Why, after years of staying out of the spotlight, would Edward choose this moment to speak? Some believe it is a response to recent royal controversies. The monarchy is once again under scrutiny, with younger generations questioning its relevance and past mistakes. Diana's legacy remains a major factor in these discussions. By speaking now, Edward is not just reflecting on the past, he is addressing the monarchy's present struggles. His words also starkly contrast with past royal statements. When Charles spoke of Diana, it was with formality, carefully measured, avoiding anything too revealing. When Prince William honors his mother, it is with respect, but also a clear intention to separate her legacy from his reign. Even Prince Harry, who has been the most vocal about Diana's impact, speaks from a deeply personal place, driven by his own experiences. Edward, however, has no personal agenda. He is neither trying to defend himself nor position himself for public favor. His words are controlled, deliberate, and deeply revealing. In just a few sentences, he confirmed what many had suspected, that Diana's struggles were not just personal, but institutional. His revelations have already sent shockwaves through the monarchy. His rare honesty has left many questioning how much more has been hidden behind the palace's carefully curated image. But the biggest impact is yet to come. Because Edward's words didn't just shake the past, they ignited a firestorm in the present. Prince Edward's revelations have done more than just stir old memories. They have reopened deep wounds within the monarchy. His words, though measured and controlled, have forced the institution to once again confront its most painful chapter. The royal family has spent decades trying to reshape its image, distancing itself from the controversies surrounding Diana's life and death. But with Edward breaking his silence, those efforts may be unraveling. Inside the palace, the response has been fractured. King Charles, already burdened with the weight of his past mistakes, is said to be deeply unsettled. His relationship with Diana was a defining failure, one that has haunted him even as he ascended to the throne. Edward's words serve as a painful reminder of the choices Charles made, choices that shaped Diana's fate and forever damaged the monarchy's relationship with the public. For Charles, this is more than just a historical discussion. It is an unhealed wound that refuses to close. Prince William, the heir to the throne, faces a difficult balancing act. He has always honored his mother's legacy, but he has also worked hard to steer the monarchy into the future without being trapped by the past. Edward's words have now forced him to reconsider how much of Diana's story he is willing to acknowledge. Will he embrace the uncomfortable truth, or will he try to contain the fallout? His reaction will shape not just his reign, but the monarchy's ability to evolve. Then there is Prince Harry, the most vocal defender of Diana's legacy. His decision to step away from royal life was in part driven by the very forces that Edward has now exposed. Harry has spent years calling out the institution's failures, arguing that his mother was mistreated and silenced. Edward's statements might vindicate him, but they could also deepen the divide between him and his family. If Edward, the once loyal royal, can acknowledge these truths, how much longer can others continue to deny them? Beyond the personal tensions, there is a larger question. What does this mean for the monarchy itself? Edward's revelations have added another crack to an already fragile institution. The modern world demands transparency, and the royal family is struggling to meet that expectation. If Edward, a prince known for his loyalty and restraint, is willing to speak on Diana's struggles, what else has yet to be revealed? Some believe Edward's honesty might have helped the monarchy adapt, proving that even those within the institution are capable of reflection and change. Others see it as a dangerous precedent, one that could weaken the monarchy's control over its history. One thing is clear: the royal family can no longer ignore the past. For the royal family, Edward's words are more than just a personal reflection, they are a public reckoning. Prince Edward's revelations did not go unnoticed. Within hours of his comments surfacing, headlines exploded across major news outlets. Television panels dissected every word, journalists speculated about the palace's next move, and social media erupted into a storm of debate. In an era where every royal statement is analyzed under a microscope, Edward's decision to speak out became an instant flashpoint. Public opinion was divided. To some, Edward was a truth-teller, finally acknowledging what the monarchy had long tried to bury. Supporters praised him for his honesty, seeing his words as a step toward accountability. They believed his admission validated Diana's struggles and exposed the institution's reluctance to change. But others saw his statements as a disruption, an unnecessary rehashing of wounds the monarchy has been trying to heal for decades. Critics questioned his timing. Why speak now, after all these years? Was he attempting to rewrite history? Was he trying to distance himself from the institution's past failures? Or worse, was he acting out of personal frustration rather than a genuine need for transparency? The media's role in shaping Diana's legacy also came under scrutiny. For years, newspapers and broadcasters crafted the narrative surrounding her, some portraying her as a tragic heroine, others as a royal outsider who destabilized the monarchy. Edward's words challenged those long-standing portrayals. He did not present Diana as a flawless figure. nor did he defend the monarchy's treatment of her. Instead, he introduced a more nuanced perspective, one that many journalists were forced to confront. But perhaps the most intense reaction came from social media. Within minutes of Edward's statements, hashtags about Diana, the monarchy, and royal secrecy began trending worldwide. Younger generations who had not witnessed Diana's struggles firsthand suddenly found themselves immersed in the debate. Users shared clips of Diana's past interviews, discussed the parallels between her treatment and Meghan Markle's, and questioned whether the monarchy could survive another scandal rooted in its inability to evolve. The palace has remained tight-lipped, offering no immediate response to the media storm. But the damage or impact has already been done. The conversation has shifted, and once again Diana's name is at the center of a debate that refuses to fade. Edward's words have become more than just a statement. They have fueled a new era of debate. Prince Edward's decision to speak after decades of silence is more than just a personal revelation. It is a shift in how the royal family confronts its past. For years, the monarchy relied on secrecy, believing that avoiding controversy was the best way to preserve its power. But as Edward has shown, silence does not erase history, it only delays the inevitable reckoning. His words have reignited discussions about Diana's struggles, the institution's resistance to change, and the cost of royal duty. They have forced the world to reconsider what was once thought to be settled. Was Diana's fate inevitable? Could the royal family have protected her? And if they had, would the monarchy be stronger or weaker today? Edward's revelations have also set a precedent. If even he, a prince who spent his life avoiding the spotlight, felt the need to speak, what does that mean for the future of the monarchy? Should more royals step forward, offering honesty instead of carefully curated narratives? Or does transparency pose a greater threat than silence ever could? One thing is certain: Diana's legacy is far from finished. Her story continues to shape the monarchy, influence public perception, and stir emotions decades after her passing. And now, thanks to Edward, the conversation has started once again. As the world re-examines Diana's story once again, one question lingers: was Edward's truth worth the cost? If this story moved you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share.